seconds.
Is this where the damn drumming and the music kicks in?
Yeah.
What is going on, everybody? Hello, and welcome to On the Pipe Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Tyler Shepardson, and today is Wednesday, March the 15th, 2023, years after zero, and we are joining you, I would say just in time, but it's a couple days late. We're going to do a weekend review with Stu show tonight. Now, you guys are used to us doing those shows on Mondays after races. After Florida, things got a little bit busy, didn't happen. We did a really good show for OTP Tuesday. It was a good time. This week, we were going to do the show on Monday, and we learned that there was some changes that, or I guess there was a protest that was under investigation at that point. And so we didn't want to do a show basically before we got confirmation on what was going on. Whether we were expecting a press release, you would think in a situation like this, especially one that changes and alters the overall points lead, that it would be accompanied with a press release. They did today enact a penalty on Stu Baylor that's going to dock him one position, bumping him down to the fourth place spot and moving Ben Kelly into the final podium position, which, keep in mind, going into the weekend, they were tied on points. So now the points lead changes. Ben Kelly will be the sole possession of the white plate, the overall points lead. And so usually that would be accompanied with a press release and a explanation of what was going on, why it happened, etc. And so, from everything that I know to be true, that decision was made on Monday. And so we were just kind of waiting on that to come out, so that way we could know how to approach the situation and know what to say, what to not say, how to, how it all goes. So that didn't come, and then yesterday it didn't come, and then today, check the results. The results had been changed, but the press release had not been out yet. So that is why we are a couple days late. And then with it not coming out on Monday, I figured that it would come out on Tuesday. And so I was going to bump the OTP Tuesday show and our guests over to Wednesday and then do the Stu show on Tuesday. Well, by the time we found out that it wasn't going to happen on Tuesday, it was already too late to kind of try to reroute 2 to 3 people's lives for OTP Tuesday. So my apologies. I think we're hitting our stride with On the Pipe Podcast. I think things are going swimmingly. I am in the process of moving into the new studio on Main Street in Lowell, North Carolina. So if you're ever driving up and down 85 through North Carolina, you're going to be driving like literally within a half a mile of the studio. So if you're ever passing through and you want to stop in and say, hey, by all means, reach out. Let me know. Come stop by. I'll be printing T-shirts there and then doing the podcast and stuff there as well. So if you ever are traveling up and down 85, we're exit 22. Come see me. Say what's up. But yeah, so I think the show's at a really good point. I think we're poised and ready to go. Got some big ideas, some big plans going on this weekend. This year rather, of growing this thing. We're signing sponsors. We're negotiating deals for other sponsors. There's all sorts of irons in the fire right now. And so I think the podcast is in a good spot. That being said, the last 2 days, all I've wanted to do is bring you a podcast. And not only that, there's so much to talk about. There's so much going on. With that being said, I think we're going to take the bulk of this information and push it to another podcast tomorrow. So I think we'll do an OTP Tuesday on a Thursday tomorrow. And then in the beginning of that one, we'll kind of discuss some storylines and stuff going on. The reason I say that is because this conversation with Stu went a little bit over an hour. And I know people's attention spans these days. I know my attention span. I don't even know if you made it 4 minutes into this or if you just skipped all the way forward to when we started talking about that. Either way, I don't want to make these things too long. I don't want to make it so it's a chore to listen. I want this to be a good nice little chunk of listening time. I want this to be a positive thing. I want you to hear all of the content, because a lot of times the stuff that I forget to ask throughout the show, or I write down as we're talking, then we get on to a different subject and I don't get to ask. A lot of times some of the best stuff is at the end of the show. And so I hope that you guys listen all the way through these things, because realistically, like a good portion of the good stuff of the show comes at the end. That being said, I'm not going to sit you here and make you wait for 3-4 hours to hear these shows. I like to try to keep it at an hour to an hour and a half. I think that's a good sweet spot. And yeah, so long story long, I don't want to sit here and talk for a whole bunch of stuff and go through all these storylines, because next thing I know, I talk for 40 minutes, and then Stu's and I's conversation is a little bit over an hour. So I think we're going to save that. We're going to push that to another day and get into some of the storylines right now. We're going to do this show. We're going to hear from Stu, hear about the penalty, hear about what happened, and just some other stuff scattered in there throughout. And so thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. I did put up a YouTube video of this past weekend. Did the same kind of little documentary style. I'm really trying to show some more like inner workings of racing. I want you to feel like you were there. I want you to feel like you were a part of it. And that's why I'm trying to do the documentary style, doing some interviews with some riders. And one of the cool things that I kind of like doing now is being there at the finish line with the camera to capture everything post-race. That's when everything's fresh. That's when everything's going on. Everyone's finding out what in the world just happened over the past 3 hours. And so that stuff is in there at the end. And then, of course, as always, right in the middle, you got all the raw riding clips of the entire race. Those clips that I put in there, they are filmed in chronological order. So the order that I saw them, which is the order that the race progressed, which is the order that they were running in at that point of the race, that is the order that the clips were in. So they will never be out of place. They will be in chronological order. Also, man, it's tough because trying to chase the leaders, you get to the point where you try to figure out, hey, can I make it from the 2.5 to the 4.5 in enough time? Is that enough time to get over there? And a lot of times you get there and you see Craig DeLong going by, and you see Ricky Russell going by. So a lot of times I get to spots, and the first couple leaders have already been by. That being said, I don't like filming like randomly in it. If I miss the top 2 guys, I usually just nix that whole spot and I go to the next spot, because putting them in order and showing how the race progresses, if all of a sudden you're seeing Craig DeLong and Ricky Russell, just they're the ones that came to the top of my head, out in first and second place position, and then we go to the next spot and you see Strang and Stu in the those are the first 2 riders that you see, then in your mind you're probably like, where did Craig go? Where did Ricky go? When in fact they had already gone by. So there's a lot that goes into filming this. Is basically what I'm getting at. It's not as simple as point and shoot. So trying to get all over the place and trying to get these videos, man, I'm having a blast doing it, and it looks like it's being reciprocated by you all. The 3 GNCC recap videos have done pretty well this year, so thank you for everyone that is watching those. I would love some feedback, good or bad, about what you think about those videos. But yeah, I think it's going good, and it's challenging me to get more creative and do more things and get a little bit out of my comfort zone. So I hope you all enjoy it. I hope you all appreciate it, because I mean, really, at the end of the day, that's what I'm going to these races for. I got a couple other like behind the scenes things that I'm doing and reasons to be there, but a big part of it is to be able to cover this action for you guys, for you to see the videos, and for you to hear the podcast and what's going on and everything in the mix. So that is why I do it. I mean, it's just, your support means the world to me, and really the best thing you can do to support me is just click the subscribe button. Wherever you're listening to this at, click subscribe on YouTube. Click subscribe. I know a lot of people who watch the videos aren't subscribed to the YouTube channel, so if you could just remember, hit that subscribe button, hit the follow button on the socials. Like, it's free. It takes a second. It keeps you in the loop, and it supports the show, and it keeps this thing going. So thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. That YouTube video is now available. As I mentioned, I don't want to get into all the storylines. We're going to save that. But I do want to get into a big old storyline that's going to lead us into our next segment here. Beta motorcycles. They are the official manufacturer of On the Pipe podcast. Beta Motorcycles has been family owned and operated since 1905. Beta Motorcycles were in first and second place overall for the first 2 laps of this race, and they were in first and second place in the XC2 class for the majority of this race, and they were in the second place spot on the podium. And then also Jay Lipscomb led that thing from start to finish and won by 16 minutes, grabbed the whole shot, never looked back, won XC3 by 16 minutes, and that means Beta race team manager Carlin Gardner is now going to race at GNCC. He has to. That was the rules. That was the rules. The rules is the rules. And we made that up at Big Buck. So, actually, I think they already had it going beforehand. But I became privy to the information at Big Buck that if any of the Beta boys won a race, then Carlin Gardner was going to come out and race. So, see you soon, Carlin. Knock the dust off that Arrow helmet you got. Or I guess the team might have different sponsors now. But knock the dust off them boots and them riding gears. We're going GNCC Woods racing for 3 hours because Jay Lipscomb got the XC3 win. Evan Smith, second place in the XC2 class. What a day it was to see them Betas out front. Beta 1 and 2 in the XC2 class, off of the whole shot, and then stayed up there, led the overall. It was pretty sick. It was a good day to be under that Beta rig. I was pumped. The boys were pumped. Everyone was pumped. And in those conditions, that's where you want a 2-stroke. And them 2-strokes were shining. A little last-minute tire change had them boys hooking up. And, it was cool. It was a good day. It was an awesome weekend. And I can't thank the Beta family enough because they've become my race family, very accommodating of me. So shout out to the Beta boys. They're probably listening to this while putting together some bikes to head to Texas or cleaning some bikes that came from Georgia. But shout out to the Beta boys. It goes much beyond the sponsorship of the podcast, and I'm very appreciative of them and appreciative of everything that Beta has brought me as far as opportunities. And I will have a brand new Beta motorcycle this week or next week, which is perfect timing because my leg is finally cleared, good to go. We are back to full capacity. Doctor told me ride dirt bikes, do whatever I want, and I said, hey, just in time because I'm about to have me a brand new Beta 390RR. And you, my friends, should check out BetaUSA.com for more information on their available models or find a dealer near you to get yours today so you can have your own Beta showing up one week for you to ride. Check them out. Premium quality, rideability, whole shot ability, Beta motorcycles. This episode is also brought to you in part, as always, by our good buddy Zach Tussle at Raymond James Financial. Zach is a racer and a financial advisor. He helps his clients win when it comes to retirement and financial planning. Right now is the time to get in the market. I'm trying to tell you, the best time was yesterday. The next best time is right now. Go to financialadvisorsdenvernc.com to fill out a form to get yourself a free consultation with Zach Tussle just for listening to On the Pipe podcast. And I'm serious. It's no obligation. He's not a salesman. He's not gonna try to sell you. He's not gonna coerce you into it. Just gonna educate you on what he can do for you if you choose to let him do that for you. You don't have to be a millionaire. You don't even have to have a lot of extra money. You just gotta have a want to plan for your financial future. Zach Tussle can help you do that. financialadvisorsdenvernc.com. And last but most certainly not least, we are brought to you by OTP Screen Printing, your number one source for T-shirts in the premium quality. I had something else planned, but that's what came out of my mind. Premium quality and wearability. OTP Screen Printing. Maybe that'll be our new tagline. But for real, if you need shirts made for your company, if you need shirts made for whatever, more than 24 shirts made. We should have a 24-piece minimum, so wholesale shirts. If you want a bunch of shirts made, hit up OTP Screen Printing. They're on the socials now at OTP Screen Printing. It's just OTP Screen Printing. And, get a free quote. Let them know what you need, and we'll get you dialed in and get you exactly what you need and get it to you quick. That is the other thing. Hopefully we can get it to you in a very timely manner. So if you need shirts made or you know that your company orders a lot of shirts, maybe go to the person that orders the shirts, the HR lady, the administrative assistant, whoever orders the T-shirts for your company. I mean, a lot of, especially construction stuff, you're burning through T-shirts. You're getting them dirty. You're going to the safety meetings. They're giving you new ones. if you know the person that gets the T-shirts made at your place, maybe go to them and be like, hey, we probably have no relationship with this dude that's doing screen printing. Probably just Googled screen printing near me, get T-shirts made near me, and the first one that popped up, we clicked on it, and that's just who we've been getting T-shirts from. Now, you got a personal relationship, a personal connection with someone that can make your T-shirts for you, and that's me, yours truly, OTP Screen Printing. Hit us up. I would love to make some more T-shirts for all of yins because, like I said, we got a place on Main Street that we got to pay for. So, yeah. With that being said, I don't want to waste any more of your time. Thank you for being here. Be a friend, tell a friend. If you enjoy these shows, let somebody know about it. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button. Go to youtube.com/onthepipepodcast. Check out our videos and make sure you subscribe on there. Yeah, I think that about covers it. We will see you at another point this week for more OTP goodness. All right, without any further anticipation, joining us, the guest of the evening for Weekend Review with Stu. He is a 2-time ISDE World Champion, a 5-time National Enduro Champion, a GNCC XC2 Champion, a full gas overall champion, and a cheating track cutting scumbag, Stu Baylor. Stu, what's going on, man?
Just headed to Texas, but I'm only a cheater if I admit it, right?
I think
Isn't that how it works? Yeah, we're headed to Texas now, so en route for the 2-day trip out west, and obviously a lot on my mind.
Yeah, it seems like this year we're only 3 rounds in, and you can't escape the headlines, the storylines, the drama. Every round.
Yeah, it's I got to go back to something that I was told when I was a kid. The only time you need to be worried is when they stop talking. Jason Raines. I was upset when I think I was staying with him. I was 12, 13 years old, and a lot of kids that I grew up with, a lot of my buddies, or who I thought were buddies, kind of just turned against me, and I was always a cheater. Every single weekend I was cheating. They didn't know why or how, but I was the cheater. So, and I was talking to Jason about it, and he said, to me, the only time you have to worry is when the talking stops. If they're talking, then they're jealous of something. So, no, I mean it's obviously not a great situation, but hey, I admitted it, so that's what it is.
It seems like Jason Raines has dropped a lot of knowledge throughout the years to you and a lot of other people. But the only thing I took from that whole situation is you've been cheating your whole life, man. This ain't nothing new.
Yeah. I mean, I'm used to BS allegations, and I was told that I was a cheater, but ever since I started winning, nobody calls a loser a cheater. I'll tell you that.
It's funny how that works. But all jokes aside, and I know we're kind of making light of the situation. At the end of the day, man, it was a mud race. There was a lot of stuff going on. There were a lot of lines that were taken that were outside of the rules, outside of the track, that were on video, that were not on video, that riders saw, that people saw. I mean, at the end of the day, a race like that is really survival of the fittest. Race lines develop. You get to know where the gnarly spots are, and people go around them. And it's not just you guys. It's the other 300 people that were in that race that are literally consumers that don't have a parts budget, that don't have a big rig to go drop their bike off. They got to pay the bill for this stuff. So they're going to be looking extra hard for the line around the mud holes and the mud pits. And we kind of make light of the cheater thing. Yes, you did take an illegal line. Yes, you did take a line that was outside of the track. But so did everybody else. And I was going to say, maybe everyone else, but I actually personally have a video of literally everybody else. And we'll get into that here in a little bit. But a race like that, man, it's, like I said, it's survival. Race lines open up, and everyone is guilty of it. But in this situation, you came off the track. You immediately addressed what you did to Carrie, Joe, Russell, and to the Racer TV live stream and to the podium. But in your own words, I guess the way that we should start it out is kind of lay the scene, lay the foundation, explain what happened in the line specifically or the incident specifically that this penalization is coming from?
Well, I'm going to say something brief and then cut to the race. And then we'll finish with this because this is a podcast. We can't give them all the juicy stuff right off the flop. I mean,
Good
come
call.
on, man.
Good call. This is my first time hosting.
This is why everybody's going to tune into this for exactly what we're starting with. Like, we're just giving them a teaser at this point.
Well, yeah. So mainly just like fact of the matter, like what is GNCC's reason for docking you? I guess that's a better way to ask it.
So fact of the matter is, what happened was a position was gained off the track. Now, with that being said, anybody who raced Georgia, if they state, unless they finish less than a lap, if they state that they stayed on the arrowed course within 25 feet of the arrows or between all double arrows, I'm going to call bullshit right off the bat, unless they made less than a lap. And the thing is, anybody that rode that track knew how bad it was. A lot of people don't know, if you're listening and you weren't at Georgia or you've never ridden a race that bad. I mean, okay, so you've ridden a local race that's muddy. You have no idea. I love hearing people talk about, trying to compare a local race that's muddy to a national event that's muddy. I mean, people are twice as hard on the throttle. There's 20 times the traffic going through, and it's a course that we've ridden, year after year after year. And Georgia of all is one of the places that even on a dusty year can have some of the deepest, gnarliest mud holes as we've seen in years past. So, I mean, there's literally water running out of the top of hills there on dry days. So, it's a very odd property when it's dry, much less wet with the soft pocket. So, to me, everybody was off the course. If they're saying that a pass happened off the course, well, okay, it did, and I admitted to it. I came in right across the finish, and it was before anybody had time to protest me. I put my hands in the air, looked at Carrie Joe, and said, "I protest myself. I made a pass in the last lap off the track." It was just a situation that I'll give the full detail at the end of the podcast. But as far as the racing goes, let's get into more racing.
So, I guess we should talk about that beforehand because I went out of my way to set that whole thing up, and then that makes way more sense.
Well, once I thought about it, once you said it, I was like, man, we should have discussed this, because if not, we're gonna have like everybody listen to the first part of this podcast and not listen to any of it. So, I mean, you got shit to sell, man. Like you gotta go attract the people that listen to the end.
Hey, shout out Stu Baylor looking at
track that or not.
thinking of the retention rate.
Dude, it's all a business. It's all a business for me.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking of being all a business, I've already caught flack from so many people just for making a social media post. I didn't give an opinion. I didn't say anything. All I did was say, "Oh, I happened to refresh the results page and the results are different. Here's the new results." And now all of a sudden, I'm the bad guy. So,
well, I mean, in your job, what is your classification at the event?
Media.
I'm a professional racer. You are what? In that event, what credentials do you have at that event? Media. Okay, so in my opinion, media reports what goes on. I mean, that's what that is your job. So, will it create drama, tension? Will this podcast create more drama, tension? Probably, but to me, like, I'm always able to speak on a situation. Obviously I'm going to have to tread lightly on all of my opinions, because all I can base off is facts. And, as a media outlet, I hope you do the same. And I think you do. The facts and what you have in front of you at the time. And granted, facts can change after situations, but your job as media is to report on things like this. So if anybody wants to hate on you for doing your job, then I mean, fuck them. Like, that's the way I see it. So that's my opinion. Again, that's based upon facts, but that is my personal opinion on that. So keep doing your job.
Well, hey man, thanks for the endorsement. And the way that I like to look at it, and I mean, you and I talked. Today's Wednesday. We talked a good bit on Sunday. We talked a good bit on Monday. We talked yesterday. We talked today. So I mean, it's not like you come on willy nilly and start making stuff up. Like I said, it kind of sucks in this position to be right in the middle of it, because in this sport it is so personal. Like, it's easy to talk about Tom Brady. I'm never gonna meet Tom Brady, but anytime I say something about anything going on here, it's like, man, I'm gonna see all you guys next weekend. You know what I mean? And so, and that's why, like I said, I didn't give an opinion or anything. I just said, hey, here's what happened. And in my mind, the whole point of media is accountability. And that's one of the things that we preach, and I'm sure we're going to get into it even more into the podcast. But accountability as far as, hey, we need to see some consistency. It's the same thing after the buckwheat. When I did the show about that, it's like, we need to know, you guys as racers need to know, hey, if you break a rule, then here's what happens. If you break this rule, then here is your penalty. And it's got to be frustrating as a competitor, as someone basing your livelihood off of race results, as somebody who just lost a podium bonus. It's got to be frustrating to know that, hey, if you cut the placard over here, not a big deal. If you cut a line back here, you're getting docked a position. But maybe you won't get docked a position. Maybe you'll dock points. Maybe you'll get docked money. Like, it's got to be frustrating to not have any consistency or not know what's going to happen in a situation like you ended up in this past weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's you're in this sport, you're quite frequently reminded of your value as a racer. To the fans, everybody says that the fans are what pay our bills, and I would agree, which is why I try to take time for all the fans. But at the same time, it's not. The fans buy the bikes, the bike brand pays us. The fan buys the parts, the part manufacturer pays us. So it's really a lot of times it's based on somebody else's opinion at one of those companies. And when things like this happen, there's a lot more weight that it holds. I mean, in my situation, let's just go and throw this out. So I chose to run a business in this parking lot. I chose to start a team in this parking lot. And in my opinion, and again, this is an opinion, so it's not a fact, but in my opinion, based upon facts, I got to look at this from a business standpoint. And from a business standpoint, let's take Rocky Mountain, who has just basically taken us in, done a phenomenal job, great company, but also a very, very large company who is tied in with the majority of the industry. And they just hired this guy that 2 out of 3 races has penalties. So now do they want to be in the hot seat with this drama? I mean, me personally, if I was sitting back on the backside, I would be, starting to ask questions as to what, why, who, when, how.
What did we get into?
Exactly. And, you're never painted the full picture as a fan, as a corporation. The people that know the full story are the racers and the direct parties affiliated. And, a lot of people have talked about, I've seen a post about staying in somebody's lane. Well, the person that said that also wasn't even affected by this. My kid's plate is affected by this. My wife's plate is affected by this. So if you're talking for people to stay in your lane, maybe you should fucking check yourself. Like that's where I'm standing on this. Like, we've got a lot of people that stick their nose in a place they don't belong. And in this situation, it puts me in a very difficult spot because, again, this is me, a guy who went to 2 years of college but stopped to race motorcycles. I was going to school for a business and marketing degree, so now it very much relates to the parking lot that I'm in and what I'm trying to accomplish. So when you're looking at business and marketing, is this a good thing or is it a bad thing? I mean, you can look at both sides. Obviously, All press is good press is the longest, in marketing. That's a great line, but really, is it? Just some companies not want to mess with that. Me personally, I'm all for all press is good press, but I've got to be open minded on this. So situations that keep arising like this that could basically change the way that somebody else sees my character could be a problem. And a lot of people may not know the story that I came in and took my hands off the bars before talking to any other person, went straight to Carrie Joe and said, I'm protesting myself. A lot of people don't know that. They see the backside of it, of he got caught off the track and made a pass. So now I'm a cheater in that person's eyes, and that's never what I want to be. But I feel like I can sleep at night. I turned myself in. Nobody else had to. At the same time, though, in that situation, again, if anybody can say they stayed on the track the whole time, then they're a liar. I'm just going to say that right now. I mean, I was in the lead group XC1, and I saw that everybody we lapped off the track and everybody in our group off the track. Teams pointing riders off the track to get through stuff, not to cheat, but just to get through. That's I could talk on this until I'm blue in the face, but it does change the way that people may perceive me if they don't know the full story, and that's what kind of sucks. Like, I get it. I saw Ben's comment on there earlier where he thinks that the fans are against him. I don't think anybody should be against Ben. Ben's not in this situation. Ben and I are buddies. But if he thinks it's bad in his shoes, step in mine. That's my opinions on the matter based upon the facts. But that's kind of where I am.
And so there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, whatever you were doing a second ago, you sounded a whole lot better. So I don't know what you did, but it was really good. Then it kind of went away. But going off that, we're right back into the thick of the media thing. And as far as like being unbiased and kind of reporting the facts and what was going on. And Ben did comment on that post, and then he did remove the comment. But it's the same thing. Like before last time and this time, like this really necessarily, and correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't necessarily an issue with riders. Because I think riders out on the course, like they all know, like, hey, well, we all did what we had to do. I mean, I've personally talked to at least 5 XC1 riders in that race who have all said that they took lines that they knew they shouldn't have taken. But, I mean, on a dry day, people aren't doing that. Like, in this race, it's completely different circumstances. And, like I said, race lines just develop. But going back about the comment about, like, you're in a lot different place now, running the team, kind of putting this thing together and, like, betting on yourself. And you mentioned, like, the fact that, like, you're relying on this and your wife is relying on this. But going off of that, like, there's 3 riders under that tent relying on it. There's sponsors that are relying on it. There's mechanics relying on it. There's the families of the other riders that are relying on it. And so when you're talking about, like, seeing this stuff differently, so I guess what I'm getting at is the loop out at the first round, that penalty, it was just a freak accident. It's something that you've always done. It's something that's always been applauded, appreciated, and advertised. And this time, it just happened to catch a wire, and now all of a sudden it's a big deal, and you get penalized. And then this one, you did the same thing that a lot of people did in the race, whether they want to admit it or not. You came off the track, and you admitted it. So I guess 2 of these things they're both decisions that you've made. Granted, you can't look at it black and white. You didn't take out scoring on purpose. That wasn't your first time looping out. Just like in this race, everyone took a line, and it is what it is. But from that perspective, like, how hard would it have been to really stop and look through the mud and see placards and stuff on the trees? Like, when you're out there racing for, at the end of the day, not a whole lot of money, especially coming from the promoter, but when a lot of these contracts are really heavy on win bonuses, like, how hard is it to really stop and address the track in a situation like that, or make sure that a line doesn't have an actual deep rut that you can't get out of that happens to go off the track and come back on? Like, what would it be like if you have to like to stop and think about all that while you know that your livelihood is also on the line.
Yeah, I mean, that part, it's really rushed. I mean, it happens quick, and you couldn't even see the trail markings. You could just see tracks going everywhere. And I picked a track, and I picked the wrong one. And, my point to the promoters when I discussed it as well was, if we all wanted to cheat, if we genuinely wanted to cheat, we've been going to these tracks. I've been going to these tracks for now 20 years, racing the same courses. And this is not to bash GNCC, but this is because it's factual, but almost the exact same course every year, forwards and reverse. I know what turn is coming and when it's coming. I know the lay of the land and where you could cut. If I wanted to do loops around scoring and hit every checkpoint, I could. I could do it in places where nobody's watching. It's 13 miles of trail, 14 miles of trail, especially on a muddy day. You could do whatever the hell you wanted. I mean, realistically, nobody lines up to intentionally cheat. I don't think that anybody goes out there and says, I want to cheat to win today. I don't care what it takes.
Not a single person. And I think one of the biggest things, and I don't mean to cut you off, but one of the biggest things is when these docks happen, like a lot of times riders didn't even realize that they were in an offline. And I think a lot of riders, especially a few in particular I'm thinking of, like, they don't want to be known as a cheater. They don't want people to think that they're a cheater. So when situations like this happens, it's even more, I guess, makes them even more angry, and you probably as well, that people see stuff like this and assume that you are a cheater when, like you said, that wasn't the intention.
Yeah, I mean, it's a like I say, a sore subject all the way around, because I mean, it's never because we want to cut. I mean, a lot of times we're pointed a certain way where we just see the track develop, and maybe a section where you walk the track and you don't really, I mean, the track goes left, right, and you're straightening out the line. You can see that there's turning line, but you don't actually know, like, is that 25 feet or is it 26.2?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't take a tape measure out of my pocket, my handy dandy fanny pack, and pull it out and check real quick. When you're fighting to put food on the table. So, it's one of those situations where it's a touchy subject, and definitely, I mean, the penalties are always different. That is a fact. The penalties have not been consistent, and it sucks, but it is where I have to make my living. So I have to tread lightly, and obviously my treading lightly is much heavier than anybody else in XC1 or on that pro road. But it's not that I pride myself in being honest and speaking the facts. It's that's the way I was raised. I think that there's always room for facts. Now, granted, if your wife asks if she looks good in something, you can always lie. You're always safe there. But a lot of times I don't even lie in that situation, which is, well, usually she doesn't like me either. But no, I mean, in almost any situation, I feel like the facts matter and the truth matters. And in this industry, a lot of times, neither of those are the case. There's always something that's missing in context, and it's not directed. That's not a comment directed towards anybody, but there's a lot of accusations that happen in this sport. A lot of like you said, it's personal, and I think that's why it's so bad, is because it is so personal. But that's what makes this sport so unique and so awesome at the same time. Is we're not making hundreds of millions of dollars, so we are approachable. We are real people. You're able to come and hang out under the rig. You're able to come and talk to your favorite racer, and you're also able to see the side that nobody really gets to see in almost any other, in really any other sport.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess when when this particular situation came up, like what was the reasoning for you to feel so inclined to come off the track and immediately say what had happened? Like there had to have been something that like stood out to you about it, whether it was the passing back and forth with the rider involved or people out in the woods, or I mean, what stood out about that situation to come in and feel like it needed to be addressed by you?
So at this point, I think it's safe to say that we might as well just fully open up the story. So
we started to trend away from it, and then we went right back into the thick of it.
Yeah,
and
we're just staying in it. So
everyone, just stay on and listen after this conversation. We got more stuff to talk about.
Yeah, we got to talk about racing next. Why I landed up on a 2-stroke the whole night. So with a lap and a half to go, my bike started shutting off. I was having some electrical issues with the kill switch, and my bike shut off a few times. It allowed some guys to catch up rather quickly, and then String got by. I was able to catch back up the String, and then I'm like trying to get to him. I had a few spots. I was like, man, if I'm with him here, I can make a pass. And my bike shuts off again, and then another time, and that time it wouldn't fire, and I was just kind of sitting on the side of the track, and I watched Johnny go by, and then I pulled out, like somehow my bike started like just in front of Ashburn, and I just saw Ashburn there. Where there wasn't really much of a battle, like he was right behind me, and then I come to the 9-mile marker, and I see somebody pointing a left line in this ditch, and I know the track. When I went through the ditch and then turned left, I didn't, you don't really think about like how far does it make that left turn. I was in the right line, so I'm trying to get to the left, and I crash getting into the line. Like my front wheel's up into the line, but my back end got hung on the bank. I'm falling over. The guys are helping me get the bike up, and I'm pointed into this line up the hill. And as I get on my bike, I hear somebody go by. I was there for a few seconds, so I follow through the line that I was on, and I pop out of the top of the hill, and I pass back the guy that technically passed me while I was down. Now, basically the reason I was protested was because technically I made a pass on this line. Well, technically, if you want to get technical, I crashed in that line, and I was leading into that line and leading out of that line on that rider. So I thought that it was I thought that it was Ashburn. I'm not sure. It could have been Ashburn and Ben, but I think Ben was a rider that I passed back while on that line. Obviously covered in mud. I don't know who was who. I knew it was a pro rider whenever they kept up with me when I got back to the top of the hill. I had no clue who it was. But then, 3 turns later, I also saw the riders that I was with at that point. It was like a 4-rider battle. We were all off the trail by probably 50, 60 feet, just trying to get through. That was like, to me, I was sitting there, and I was thinking, like, as I was battling, I was like, man, I made a pass on somebody in that line. I don't remember. I don't know. I thought it was Jordan, but I don't know which rider I passed back in that line that I crashed getting into. But I definitely made a pass on a pro rider, and I was thinking, me in that situation, I would definitely say something, and I would be upset about it. But there's no way to prove it. So I was like, I'm going to come to the finish, and I'm going to protest myself. And I got to Johnny, and I was like, God, I'm definitely going to get docked a position. Like, I've got to get around Johnny. So I got pretty aggressive. I was able to make a pass on Johnny with just a few turns left, like in the last half mile. And I guess those guys had also gotten around Johnny some time between there and the finish. And, I was just hoping that got enough room between. And I knew while I was racing that I was going to say something, that I was going to protest myself. So I went, like I said, directly to Kerry, put my hands up, said, hey, I want to let you know that I cut the track. I was off the track. I crashed going into the line. I told her the same story, the same situation. And I made a pass back in that line. I thought it was Jordan the whole time, but then Jordan never came to the finish, so I don't know. There was, like I said, 4 of us all literally until a quarter of a mile from the finish, all battling right together. So, told her the situation. She said, okay, we'll address it. And then Ryan Eccles came over. I told him where it was. And he said, well, was it like burn-in race line? Because a lot of these, they're going to be burn-in race line by that time. And I said, honestly, there might have been 10 to 15 tire tracks on it. It was a fresher line. It was coming through the muddy ditch there. It looked like some guys were pulling me up to the left. I got cross-rutted, just followed the line out. Told, exactly what happened. And then somebody else came and said some, smart remarks about what they had seen me do. And I basically said, to me, first off, I was like, where are you talking about? Is it the bike only? And they didn't know where the bike only was, but that was a section that was going into the bike only, and it was the same section right at the 9. I wasn't sure the mile marker because, well, hell, you couldn't see the mud you couldn't see through the mud on the mile marker signs to see exactly where it was, but it was right around the 9 mile marker. And I said, yeah, as I was going up that hill, I looked to my right. I was accused that I wheelied over top of the tape that was crossing it. And I said, no, I was even further inside of that, to be honest. I mean, I have nothing to hide. Like, I said, I looked over and it was right to my right. And that was, I knew I screwed up at that point. And I said, I already told Carrie, it is what it is. And then, I was told, oh, well, if roles were reversed, well, why do you think I came in to state my side? So, that was that. I thought about roles reversed. That was why I immediately, before anybody could say anything, I turned myself in. In that situation, the only person that protested me is me. And you can fact check that. You can call Tim Cotter, Kerry Joe, whatever. There's no video evidence, no proof, no film stating otherwise. And it was too damn muddy to tell who's who. So, I mean, I turned myself in. Now, there's been situations in the past where riders have turned themselves in on muddy days for a bad line, and nothing was done. So, I was just honestly hoping, like, hell, maybe they'll say this guy was trying to be honest. Like, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt, because, the riders I was battling with, I ended up putting 30 seconds on anyway. So my bike finally didn't shut off for a mile. But there was no benefit of the doubt, and there is a penalty, and I totally accept it. I have no problem with that penalty, because to me, I've been an advocate of staying on the course, and I will gladly accept my penalty, because I don't want it to be a free-for-all. I think that there has to be examples made when things go wrong. Sadly, I just wish that I wasn't always the example.
It does seem to trend that way here lately. And it's not a secret or anything. So, like, for these situations, like, whenever something happens, it's like the buckwheat instance, like other even something as simple as, like, Zacho signing for Yamaha. It's like, one thing that I try not to do is say anything until I hear it from multiple people, credible sources, and get all the facts, because I don't want to be the one that someone comes to with proof and says, hey, you lied. Here's the proof that you lied. And so I reached out to Tim Cotter. I called Tim Cotter on the phone, and I asked him, hey, because I guess I should preface this with, you and I, we're going to do the show on Monday, and this was all kind of in the works. And so we didn't want to do a show until we saw a press release and saw what was going to be said, how it was going to be handled, how it was going to be spun, and what even was going to come of it. And that being said, there still wasn't a press release, and they just changed the results on the website. Tim did say that there is a press release coming or a penalty report coming, but there wasn't one released when the results changed. So we still haven't seen that information, but it's kind of out there now, so we're talking about it. But long story long, talking to Tim, that's kind of exactly what he said. He explained the situation, explained what happened, and said that there wasn't any proof, it wasn't on video or anything like that. But the fact that you came clean with it and the fact that you said that you did it was a lot of went into the situation. But as you mentioned, that even that part of it hasn't been handled the same way in the past. And so,
yeah, I mean, and I'm not against GNCC, so I don't want to say that. Like, I mean, that's where I make my living. Like GNCC, I mean, I was there for the early on live feeds. I mean, I was there the first year of live feed. Like I've been a big part of GNCC, and we don't always see eye to eye, and I don't think there's anybody there that says that they would, but they're trying to make a business. They're trying to do what they think is right. To fill you in a little more detail on this situation and what's changing, and I think why we're going to see some different penalties change slightly is, GNCC is Racer Productions, who is MX Sports, who is now tied in with Supercross, Adult Entertainment, etc. So, they have conference calls and they try to discuss things openly and try to find what they think is the best they can do with the situation at hand. And I think that's where, this penalty was different. But at the same time, as a rider, you always think back to like what happened the last time this exact situation came up. Was it the same? And it wasn't ever changed in writing as to why it would be different. And I can remember times in the past where I've been told we're going off of what we've done in the past, and I've heard that multiple times in multiple different situations. So when you start hearing things like that, it's like you base what you think is going to happen on what you know from the past, and that is changing. Obviously, the world changed. There's going to be more change than everything. So, I can't be too opinionated on that. But what I don't like is the inconsistency does kind of suck sometimes, and I think a lot of times it is because there are more hands involved than we actually know.
Yeah, and I know that because of the position you're in, like as a team manager, as a team rider, as a competitor, as anything, like it's got to be a slippery slope to kind of talk about these things and, be politically correct and talk about it unbiasedly. And but I guess the situation that we're alluding to, and it kind of came out in the comments of the results post and all that, is 2017 Powerline Park. Caleb Russell was leading the race. And then on the drone for the Racer TV Skycam, he missed a double arrow blackwood, went around a rock section, and then posted the screenshot of him going around that section and said, hey, before they make a decision, I just wanted to get this off my chest. I wanted to admit this. I think he said the values of being honest and being upfront with it was why he did it, but he said, I missed the line, and I think the actual words in the post were that he didn't have the what's the word I'm looking for? Discipline to stop and go back inside of the arrows, and he chose to keep going around it knowing it was an illegal line. Hey, I did it. Disqualify or do whatever you want, but I just wanted to get it out there that yes, I did do it. And that relates a lot to this situation because, like you said, you took the first opportunity that you had to say, hey, I did this, here's what happened. And I think those situations were even a lot different with the way it sounds like the way that the track broke down this past weekend. So kind of like what you were saying, I just wanted to point – I know that you were kind of hinting at it, but just to like fill the listeners in on where this is coming from, like doing things in the past. And that was a question that I asked directly while I was on the phone today with them, and it really didn't get a comment. It was more of, that was 5 or 6 years ago. I'm not worried about that instance. But that is exactly why we need the consistency. And then in regards to, I think one of the other big hot points is having video of other riders cutting the track. And from my knowledge, there's videos of 2 different areas at least of other riders cutting the track. And it was explained to
Call it
me.
3.
Huh?
Call it 3
Okay,
that I
so
have.
3 different areas. I guess you must know of one more than I do.
I'm not gonna post anything. Like to me, there's no sense in stirring the pot. I'll take my penalty. I don't need to drag everybody else down with me. But there is a lot more instances that have happened this weekend, and again, when you're racing off the track, you're battling off the track, which means that passes were made off the track. So other people gain positions off the track and race lines. I can tell you that for sure. But yeah. Anyways, back to that.
No, that was explained to me as the reason that nothing was done about those videos of people cutting the track was, and I quote, extenuating circumstances due to the conditions of the racetrack. And in those lines as well, that there was not a position gained. So there was not a significant position gained in those videos. But that also goes back to the fact of, like, the rules are the rules. You can't get around what's in black and white underneath the rules tab. Like, the rules are the rules. The rule says you cannot go around a striped placard. The rules do not say you cannot go around a striped placard unless it's kind of raining a little bit, it might be a little bit muddy, and the guy in front of you does it. Then you can do it too, but just don't pass that guy in front of you.
Yeah.
Like, what are you supposed to do?
It's a tough situation because I think that there are some rules that basically say, like, if the majority of the race or whatever, like, or bottleneck situations. So it depends on what your classification of the majority of the race or bottleneck situations are. I mean, where I turned left in that ditch, did anybody get stuck in it throughout the day? Absolutely. So is that classified as a bottleneck situation? It depends on your classification. So I think, like I said, I think the biggest issue with the weekend was I protested myself. I came in, I said, I did this, and I am okay with the penalty. Now, granted, at the same time, I also said there will be no rebuttal. And there was no rebuttal until somebody went poking around, and I heard from other people things that were being said about me. And then I went back down and I said, I told you guys there would be no rebuttal, but there is now. And I have videos of other people off the track. I didn't want to say all this because these people are my friends. As we've talked about 2 or 3 times now, it is personal. We know those guys. We have to line up with them next week. I said, but here's videos of every other rider, and they are out there. And it sucks, but on situations, days like that day, it was either you stay between the arrows and do it legal, or you cut and try to make it through. And that's not that we were trying to cheat. I mean, a lot of times we were going outside of the arrows we were adding 150 feet to the track to get through stuff. But it was just the only way around that track. I mean, it was it was controversially one of the worst mudders I've ever ridden. It was right up there with John Penton in 2010 and Ironman 2 years ago. It was worse than Georgia 2014. That year, the quads had it packed hard enough that it kind of had a base to it. It really didn't start pouring until we started racing this time. It started raining before the youth race. So, arguably, like I said, one of the worst mudders I've ever ridden. And there was a lot of situations where everybody was off the course, and there was no policing that. Like I said, it comes down to it. Back to the rules is what classifies the bottleneck situation, what classifies, as being off course. And I think, there's a lot of questions that lie in that. I think, a couple things, like I admitted it on my feed. I told the world that I definitely cut the track, gained a position doing so. So I think they had to make an example out of me, and that's fine. I can sleep at night. It suck? Is Levi going to have to miss a snack pack? Maybe. Not, not really. Poor kid.
Take it out on him.
Yeah, I'll take it out on the kid.
No, so, well, the biggest point that I want to get across is the reason I didn't make a big stink about my videos is because that is the natural race line. That is what made sense. That is what everyone did in a condition like that. So it's not worth docking anybody. It's not worth penalizing anybody. Like, it's what made sense in that situation. So I guess my biggest sentiments away from this is that when stuff like this happens and people throw hate at other riders and other competitors and other guys that are out there, other guys that are involved, I think that's complete bullshit. I think you're directing your hate towards the wrong person, and that is just one thing that I don't like. But then also, like, as far as promoters and enforcing these rules and things like that, you either got to go by the rules or you got to do, like, it's tough because this one is a gray area. It's like one of those things that's like common sense, and like, hey, if there's a 4-foot deep hole and then there's a placard and then there's a line going between a tree that your handlebar hits the tree that the damn placard's on, you're not really gaining an advantage worth losing a position, especially if everybody's doing it. But at the same time, if you're going to have a gray area about stuff like that, and if you're going to let common sense errors make mistakes, then that's how it's got to be handled throughout all of them. You can't go back to a situation like we've seen in the past where a line is 26 feet off the trail instead of 25, and in the middle of a race, you make that calculation in your head and take it. You can't penalize somebody for that small of a gray area and not penalize somebody for this small of a gray area.
Yeah. I mean,
and there's no good way to do that.
Consistent. And it's tough on the promoter side. I mean, I've been appointed to where I've had to make these decisions at races before. And when you're looking at it and you actually have to make that decision, and not only make that decision, but make that decision against somebody that you know you're going to have to go back to hang out with, talk to, whatever, associate with, whether you like them, dislike them, don't talk to them, doesn't matter. You're going to associate with them next weekend, some way, shape, or form. That's where it becomes difficult is you've got to be blunt. You got to look at the facts. The problem is, in a lot of situations, I think that facts are sometimes overlooked. And, you know, I have to go back to knowing the way that they make their rules now with Feld Entertainment or whoever else is involved. I don't know who else on that phone call, but if there's anybody at motocross and supercross on that phone call, you got to think from their perspective. If you cut the track in a motocross track, you're a cheater. Granted, when it was Tomac and Sexton and Ironman and one jumped to the inside of that tree, nobody said anything. But you're a cheater if you cut the track, because it is as plain as day. Hay bales on either side. You cannot cut this. Supercross, there's no other way you can get around the track. It's flat out cutting. So in their mind, they don't understand GNCC. So sometimes when I hear like, hey, you know, we discussed it with a group and this is what we came up with, it's like, okay, is your group like-minded people who understand what we're doing, or have they watched it on TV once? Because if you've never raced GNCC in a mudder, you can't tell me what it's like. I mean, I find it very hard to believe that anybody who hasn't done it understands it. If you raced a local race in the mud, you can't tell me what it's like to race GNCC in the mud with 2,500 entries doing 6 laps apiece. That changes things majorly. I mean, it's the track is, there's areas this weekend. I mean, there's a line that I know everybody in XC1 took around the 3-mile marker where we were up by the field. We popped in out of the field and we went 150 feet off the track as soon as we jumped in the field. It was a hell of a lot faster. But
yeah,
we all did it. It was the only way around the track. And if you've never raced a GNCC, how can you create rules or cast any judgment in that situation? I mean, that's again my opinions based on facts. That's kind of where I am. I mean, I'm in a tough situation. I'm going to go ahead and level with you. So I'm on a podcast quite regularly, talking about a sport to hopefully help promote the sport, running a team, and also the racer. It is a fucking hard line to walk.
Sounds like conflict of interest.
It's a major conflict of interest. I mean, how do I go about this without saying anything negative about myself or the guy that I have to do business with, or the guy that I have to race with, or the guy that's my friend? Like, yeah, it's tough. It's a balancing act.
And honestly, man, I think people were probably expecting this to be more controversial than what it really is. But I think the simplest way to put it is that this line, you knew you did something wrong, you said something about it, and the reason that the penalty happened is really because you said something about it. And granted, everybody else could have been docked for something else, but you're the one that came up and said something about it. So, I mean, there's really not a whole lot of controversy there. But it's just, even trying to argue it or like think about it, it's like I'm very pro GNCC. I appreciate what they do. Without them, like, you guys all wouldn't have these jobs and these contracts. But there is no way to please everybody, and there is no way to police everybody, especially when you're talking about a 12-mile course, and even more so when you're talking about a 12-mile course through the some of the worst mud that we've seen.
Yeah, I mean that's the tough part. Like, I can sit here, and it's exactly like I said on the podium is don't throw rocks in a glass house. Like, I can sit here and I can say, man, GNCC made a shitty call, but did they? I mean, really, like, that's where I have to say, like, the reason I protested myself was because I felt it needed to be known, and had I not done it, like, I didn't know that Karen had seen me out there, but regardless, like, it was something that I felt the need to go and say and do. I felt like honesty outweighed it in that situation, and I think that what they did is right. Do I agree with everything? Absolutely not. I mean, we've seen some penalties to where they might take points, but basically they don't give another person the third place. I mean, when that changes, okay, well, that's changing. I don't get paid for fourth, so there goes my paycheck for the weekend. So I don't like, that I've seen other situations where other riders didn't necessarily gain points. It was done differently, and a lot of situations we've seen they play out differently. So, but I do respect that they're in a different place, and they do have, no different than myself. Like, they have things to where they have to keep all parties involved happy and try to make the best decision, knowing that they're going to be judged either way, knowing that whatever they say is going to be controversial either way that it goes. I mean, if nothing was done and everything was posted against me, then absolutely there would be people hating on me, saying I was a cheater, and I admitted to it. No different than what had happened with Caleb there and John and Caroline Park back in 2017. People were easy and quick to jump on the bandwagon to be against him. But I can see, like I say, I can see both sides, and it's definitely a tough line to walk, because I do respect their situation. It's a tough situation to be in.
Yeah, and I mean, with especially like on the live show and with all that, it kind of ties their hands too, because like if someone goes on the live show and announces to the world that they took a line that was probably illegal, like, it kind of ties their hands of like, how do we not penalize you? Like, how, well, other than that 2017 situation where it was a very clear admission and with photo proof, and nothing happened there. But outside of that, how do we do it?
Yeah. I mean, it's difficult. I mean, there's been times where I have tried to protest racers. It's only ever happened, I think, twice, but I've tried to file a protest for somebody cutting the track in front of everybody. Actually, once there was a video, 2012 Ironman. there was a video of a rider cutting a 20-second section out.
Jason Thomas. Oh, sorry.
And I mean, we had video evidence, and it was completely swept under the rug. It was like nothing ever happened. So that side of it is definitely frustrating. Like, you know, I've seen. I think a lot of it too is like when you're here for too long, you see the difference. And like I said, I mean, times are changing. They're trying to evolve the series. Racer Productions is growing, or MX Sports is growing, across the board. So they have a lot of interest elsewhere, and there's a lot of things that I think we will see change in the future. But it's like, for me, it's kind of frustrating because I've seen both sides of it. So
I just want some consistency. That's all I ask for. Let's enforce the same rules. Let's give the same penalties for breaking those same rules.
How about this for consistency? 1, 2, 3. I mean, 1, 2, 4. Fuck.
What?
That was my results for the first 3 until today.
Oh yeah, there you go. See?
Consistently headed towards the back.
Well, the good thing is you got several more rounds to do. But I mean, all of this could have been negated, and I know that we're almost an hour in now, but there's still a whole race to talk about. And all this was almost negated because you almost didn't make it to the start of the race, and then you almost made it to the race on the start of a 2-stroke. What happened?
Long story. So, there was some issues. Took off to the starting line, and for the transponder wasn't on the bike. There was some last minute stuff that had happened where the bike wasn't running prior to the race. It was a kill switch issue, which I think was what was going on there at the end of the race when it was shutting off, and just happened from the bike falling off the stand, basically. And I get on the bike, the transponder's not on it, so I go to tech, I come back, get the transponder put on, take off again. I go to click second. The shifter was too high. So I was like, hey, we got to swap it, or we got to change the shifter real quick. It was done with an impact, and it just sheared the bolt off. And basically at that point, it's like, well, what can you do? Trying with an easy out, and I can hear that they're starting the national anthem. And I'm like, holy shit, we got to go. Like, there's no time to waste. We have to go right now. So I see a 2-stroke sitting under the tent, which I've kind of been itching to ride anyway. And
are you sure that was the reason you were late to the line? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, there could have been. There's accusations that there's another reason that I was late to the line.
Again,
pretty heavy accusations.
Sorry, saw my opportunity, took it.
Yeah. I obviously, I mean, I don't even have to make up a story for that one if we want to go into those accusations, but I've got plenty of proof otherwise. But
let's finish this story.
Yeah, so I hop on the 2-stroke, and I immediately just haul ass to the start, like no time to waste, past tech. I don't even think at that point, I don't even know if I had a transponder. I think it was on the other bike. I'm just like, I got to get the start. Like, whatever I got to do, I got to get the start. So I get at the start, and I pull up to the line, and I look around, and I'm like, hey, has anybody got duct tape? I got to get this bike waterproofed in like 5 minutes. And all the mechanics are sitting there, and nobody says a word. Like, there's 17 mechanics sitting there. And I'm like, what the fuck, guys? Like, I mean, I started cussing. Like, I got pretty hot. And I was like, is absolutely nobody going to help out? I got to get this bike ready. Has anybody got duct tape? I'm trying to tape off the airbox because I knew the water. I mean, it was 3 foot deep. So, Ashburn's mechanic stepped up. Everybody else acted like they didn't hear me, looked the other way, turned their chins up. So now I'm probably the asshole because I said a bad word in front of everybody. But, I mean, I was literally, I was frantically just trying to make the start at that point. Whatever could happen, like it just seemed to keep happening. So we go, we line up. I mean, bikes were firing up from the back rows to cheer me on when they saw me on a 2-stroke. I was almost as pumped as they were. I was kind of let down when I saw my race bike lining up, but so the 10-second call goes off, and I look to my right, and here comes my bike. So I'm like, I gotta go. Like, I gotta get this thing out of here. And I honestly should have just stayed on the 2-stroke, because I mean, it would have been the perfect excuse, and somebody would have been really upset. One of the mechanics on the team probably would have tried to kill me after the race if I did to his bike what I did to mine after all that mud. But man, it would have been badass. But so I see my bike, like, they literally held the 10-second call for me as I'm like throwing my leg over my bike to get to the start, or to shut it off and get ready to start. I take off, and I'm like, I got a million things in my mind. And obviously people have seen me, like, adversity fuels my fire. So when shit goes wrong, I'm just on another level. And I went straight to the front, like got one of my best starts, straight to the front of the pack, leading, trying to push, and ended up finding a really deep water hole. I dropped my front end in it, and I went straight back to the back, because I knew I was like, I got to slow down. I lifted my bike out of the hole, like, just picked up on the handlebars and just kind of pushed it out without spinning water. And still in that lead group, and basically just stayed right where I wanted to and where I needed to for the majority of the day. But yeah, I mean, racing wise, it was a bit chaotic. Like, a lot of time spent leading, a lot of time spent getting stuck, a lot of time spent off the track, as everybody was.
Yeah, man, and that's so. When I walk down there in the middle of your colorful language, the HBO special language at the starting line, and I didn't know what was going on, and that's when I realized you're on a 2-stroke, and I was like, "What is happening right now?" But the first thing that I thought about was the show that we did at your house a couple weeks ago, and you were talking about riding the 300 and like how much you liked it, and I was like, "He's about to win on a 2-stroke potentially." Especially in those conditions. And I say that, and I mean, what do you know? The first 2 laps were led by 252 strokes with beta power.
Yeah.
So maybe the 2-stroke might have been the weapon of choice.
Trust me, I've regretted it since that moment. I wish he would have been 10 seconds later.
Yeah. That's it. And honestly, when it happened, because I was over there in the staging area in the second turn, and then I went and I filmed straight down the line when you guys were about to start, and I filmed you on the 2-stroke, and then everyone started and you came by, and someone came up. I think it was Carson, a teamer from 10-4. I think he came up and said something that you got your race bike back. And I was sitting there thinking about it. I was like, I damn sure did see some 514 number plates going through there. Like, I was so confused when it came back by that I was like, what is going on right now?
Yeah, I think everybody was. I got quite a few people asking, like, why no 2-stroke? Like, I mean, I think by the end of the season, like we discussed in that prior broadcast, like, the 2-stroke's got to come out.
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you, I'll come off the line faster than a fat kid in dodgeball. Like, it's you're out, baby, right there. I'm ready for it.
That would have been the perfect setup, though. Like, if they try to tell you they don't want the 2-strokes being ran in the premier class or whatever else they say about it, you could have been like, oh, my shifter wasn't on my race bike. It was all I had, and then I went out and won the race. Oh, might as well. Guess I have to race a 2-stroke at the next one.
Yep. That's I talked to Timmy after the race, and he's like, dude, when I saw you line up on the 2-stroke, he was like, I literally, all I could think of is that son of a bitch. He did it. He didn't say anything about it, and he lined up on a 2-stroke. And
like that was the plan all along.
Yeah, like it was planned all along. I think everybody thought that I just pulled a stunt there to line up on the 2-stroke, and the people that didn't know thought, oh, he just did that. Like, Ashburn was lining up on round 1 on the bike that, well, it had some issues. It didn't make it, but it was for the photo op. Like, I think a lot of people thought that was what I was doing, or trying to just turn some heads. Like, it was definitely not it. It was a very drama-packed few hours.
Well,
Like, the amount of shit that went wrong in that race, the fact that I ended up 3rd/4th is pretty shocking.
dude, and so when I first saw it, I had one or two thoughts. Like, one, I saw your bike on the stand, like, as the horn was blowing and the condition it was in, and I was like, okay, I guess his bike never got running. And then my second thought was it was like like one of your decisions to randomly swap to a trials tire going into the last two tests of a national enduro. Like, at the last second, you were like, screw it, I'm taking the two-stroke.
I wish that was the case, and I might just keep it prepped just for that time. So, like, if you see a 2-stroke with 514 on it, like, don't be surprised if you see me make that last minute decision, because I tell you, like, the one regret I've got one regret from that race, and it's not turning myself in. It's not riding that 2-stroke.
What a sight it would have been.
I'm
But
telling
then, yeah, we go back to rules is the rules. That's when I was walking up. I was like, dude, can someone protest you for not having red plates? Because the rules say you're supposed to have red plates.
Yeah, well, the front number plate, I think, was a red number 72. So
yeah. But if you won, I mean, there's no telling what could have came into question.
yeah, you're right. I probably would have gotten protested. To be honest, I probably would have, sadly. But that's either that's speculation. We got to stop that.
Yeah.
Remember, we're speaking facts, and then
we don't speculate. This is a facts only situation here. Let me ask you this. We just got a couple quick questions. One, since you're the team manager, does that mean you save some money from not having to pay yourself a podium bonus? That just goes back to the backside.
No, I wish that was the case.
It's like, we didn't have to pay out that Stu Baylor guy for 3rd place, so we'll pocket that money.
Yeah, no, it's not the team that pays the bonuses; it's the sponsors and the companies that back us. So, top 3 only, and they didn't write a check, which means I don't get my manager bonus or my racer bonus.
Dang it, dude! You're losing out on every business.
I don't actually get a manager bonus. I wish that was the case. My riders get whatever bonuses come in, they get it. Luckily, the team owner Todd, like, he's set to where this is a fun thing for him, except on weekends like this.
Yeah,
it's fun for anybody in our pits, but no, it's really cool. Like, as a team, all the money goes back to the riders, and I'm not paying myself any extra to be a rider/manager. It goes to the next guys so that we can try to make something out of this. And we're just trying to do this as much as we can on social media, try to keep a little bit more than just racing. Like, it's not the results don't matter, but at the end of the day, win on Sunday, sell on Monday isn't necessarily the saying anymore as far as anything with sports. It's really who's likable. It doesn't matter who you are or what you are. Like, whoever's the most relatable, whoever you see the most, like, that's who you're going to support. So to us, like, that's a big thing for this year, is trying to be relatable. And obviously we're having some struggles with keeping everything going on the team right now. We're having some issues, and just trying to keep the bikes together for 3 hours has been a task in itself.
Easy, man. You're gonna have to. I'm getting phone calls. I gotta go delete the podcast now because of stuff being said. No, I'm just kidding. That y'all's other XC1 rider, his social media's made a big step up here this year, but neither here nor there.
Yeah, Big Ben.
Yeah.
I still don't know why they call him Big Ben. There, doesn't make sense to me.
Why don't you ask him real quick? I'm sure we could get some stories out of that.
Ben, why do they call you Big Ben? He's smiling. I mean, you're not a tall or big guy. Like, he's over here asking about his bonuses still. He's upset. When you finish a race, you get bonuses.
Yeah, to finish first, you must first finish. The other thing too is like everyone talks about this mud race, and I'll let you go after this one unless you want to address the serious thing after that. I guess just let me know. But if not, everyone talks about the previous mud races and obviously Ironman, and you mentioned some ones from the past as well. One that never gets brought up, and I don't understand why it never gets brought up, because is the X Factor in 2017, and that was the year that. I'm pretty sure it was 17. 17. That was the year that it was so bad and so muddy that the AM race and the PM race got combined into one. Like, there wasn't a morning race and then an afternoon race. It was all one big race. How was that in comparison to like this past weekend?
That's hard to say. Like, that was deep, deep mud. I actually went to the hospital that day. Called it a little short, but that race was bad. Like, don't get me wrong, it was bad, but it was very wide, and you were able to find ways around it. Like, that track the woods were very open there, so you could kind of get. I mean, you get 300 feet off the track and kind of pinpoint where you needed to go, and it was. I mean, there were some bad spots, but like I can remember lap one actually. Zach Nolan called us from XC2, just right off the bat.
He led the overall for a while.
Yeah, I mean, he literally, like, 4 miles in, I was sitting in third, and I looked back at it, and it was Zach, and I'm like, what in the hell is going on? But no, that track was definitely bad. Not discrediting it at all, but there was a lot of ways around it. It was the track got really wide. It's hard to compare. Like, this weekend with the clear cut, like, there was a lot of places you flat out couldn't get around it. And later in the race actually got easier this weekend because you remember the lines. That was the only thing that made it better. I mean, the track didn't get any better, I can promise that, but it made it better for us because we were kind of going, like, in the pros, we were back and forth almost all day and reading each other's lines, trying to remember where the bad spots were. I found a lot of them for the guys. Just throwing that out there. Dumbass. I mean, if I was doing a podcast on the way that I raced this weekend, like, I would take some major discredit towards that guy. Like, idiot. I mean, idiot. Who leads in a mud race? Who drops their front end in a 3-foot water hole in a mud race? Like, let the other guys do that. Anyways.
Then you know where to go around.
Yeah, everybody else knew where to go around. I was in the water hole. No, I mean, that race was just a lot different. Like, not that it wasn't bad. It was definitely up there on the list, but I don't think it was as bad as this one. And if I remember correctly, that race, it was done raining by the time we started, and riding in the rain just flat sucks. So, like, this weekend it didn't rain the entire time, but it rained periodically, and it's just miserable when you're completely soaked in racing.
Yeah, and then you can't keep goggles clean or be able to see anything.
Yeah. I mean, that part absolutely sucks.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine that drive to Texas is also going to suck at some points of it, but I know you got a long way to go, taking a couple of days to get there. You guys stopping to ride or anything along the way, or what's your plan for getting out there?
Yeah, we found a guy out here in Texas that 30 minutes from the track that has a place that's going to let us come out. We've got a group of 4 of us that's going to go check his place out and do a little bit of riding out here Friday. So we'll be driving a couple more hours tonight. I don't like to throw off my sleep schedule too much on these, especially like GNCC, not so much. National Enduro, got to be up at 7, so I like to try to get as much sleep as possible leading up. Like, just stay on the schedule and trying to get to sleep before midnight. So we'll probably stop around midnight, then drive all day tomorrow, and hopefully ride Friday morning out there near the track.
Sweet. So it sounds like a long couple days for you coming up, and then the race this weekend, and then on the way back, you guys are straight shotting it back or kind of taking your time?
It depends on the weather. It's looking pretty cold right now, but if the weather changes, we got a buddy in Louisiana that has bow fishing boat, and the alligator gar are up in the river right now. So
shout out Blake.
Yeah, it's actually a buddy I met through him, Blue. But yeah, it's through Blake. He hooked us up with this guy. Blake won't bow fish. That guy. If you ever talk to him, like he can't stop moving long enough to ever bow fish. So it's not for him. Hunting and fishing not his thing. I mean, he I guess he used to hunt, but he started talking to the deer and realized they didn't like it. So
well, cool, man.
But it's right there in Shreveport, so it'll be the perfect time when we're headed back from the race, like 6 hours out. We'll be able to get there right at dark. It'll be the perfect timing for bow fishing if it's not 31 degrees. For Texas, which is supposed to be hot, I thought, like, not looking good this weekend. 28 for the low, 39 for the high on race day. Like, what the hell is going on? Texas ain't supposed to be like that.
No, especially not getting into near April.
No. I mean, that's absolutely awful. I'm not looking forward to this one bit.
Well, look at the bright side. I don't have to do it.
That's a very good positive. I'll try to think about that as I'm freezing my nuts off and you're thinking about things to say while we're racing.
Perfect. Well, man, good luck this weekend. Heading into the National Enduro Series. I know you're looking for a lot of redemption there. But, man, I just want to say thank you. Thanks for still coming on. Thanks for hanging in the pocket. Thanks for, really addressing this thing right in the face. Obviously, it took a lot to come off the track and say exactly what you did and then deal with the repercussions of it. But then a whole nother thing to come on here and talk in a long form kind of about the whole thing, especially when there's so much on the line for you, especially this year. So, like I said, man, just thanks for hanging in the pocket. Thanks for coming on and talking with us, and thanks for the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I think a lot of these situations, a lot of people don't want to talk about, but it's kind of the worst thing for it. Getting it out in the open, getting your side out, getting what truly happened out is a big piece of it. And I'm sure I put my foot in my mouth a few times over the podcast, but it is what it is. I try to be as real and transparent as possible, and some people either love me or hate me.
Yeah, but it's also a big part of why that Baylor heavy crowd is so damn loud and in full force at all these races.
Oh, absolutely, dude. My merch today has been, it's like shut off for the last month. And then today happened, and it's like blowing up. So
Dang.
I may not get my third place bonus, but we're making it back on hats and shirts.
There you go. See, positive out of every situation.
Absolutely.
All right, man. Well, y'all drive safe and good luck this weekend. And tell Big Ben to keep it on 10-2 in between the catch or the mayonnaise and the mustard.
10-4. Hey, they still don't know why you're called Big Ben. Any comment? Don't start playing with your shorts right now. All right, we gotta go.
All right, see you, man.
All right.